Hi BookTube! I'm here today to talk about the books that I reread this year. It wasn't something I set out intending to do. It's just something that happened. I'm not that much of a big rereader, but I guess something just happened this year and I reread 8 books. So let's just talk about them. The first one is The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan. So this is the second book in the Wheel of Time series. I had initially listened to the series on audiobook and wanted to go through and read them in physical format. And it was a big project this year. I was going to get through at least half of them, I think was my intention, if not all of them. And you can tell I only got through one, which was The Great Hunt. And just things just kind of fell by the wayside after that. It got wrapped up in other books. So The Great Hunt is the second book. If you don't know, the Wheel of Time series is in some ways a very typical classic, 80s, 90s fantasy where we follow a group of young, well, I call them kids. They're in their teenagers. That, discover the world has more magic in it than it seems. There's these things called Aes Sedai, which are women who have these magical powers, and there's something very special about this group of friends. We follow Rand, Perrin, Matt, who are the 3 guys, Egwene, and Nynaeve are the initial 5 main characters, and then we get Morgaine, who's an Aes Sedai. And the story gets more complicated from there, but it is so worth it, and it's one of my favorite series. I hopefully will reread it someday, but yeah. And it was great to reread it because it saw a lot of foreshadowing that you don't pick up on first, obviously. Yeah. Then I reread Roma Matter by Paul and Karen Anderson, and this was a book I considered like one of my favorites. It's the first book in the King of Ys series, and it's kind of like a historical, I consider it historical fiction, but there are magical elements, but the magical elements are kind of like part of the history. So Ys is a mythical place in Europe, and the whole thing is that they can't have like a succession or democracy because they don't want people from Ys controlling Ys. So their king are different people who come and challenge the current king, and if they kill him, then they become king. Along with that, I want to say inherit, because that's the word that makes the most sense, but it sounds kind of dirty, but it's not. They get 9 wives with the position, and it's not like a harem. It's more complicated than that, and the women have their own position of power in the city, and they're the ones that have the magical powers, and it's all linked to like religion and stuff like that. It's fascinating read, fascinating. It takes place during the Roman Empire in England. Anyways, did it hold up to a reread? Mostly. The writing I found was like very, 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 very straightforward. Like it was very detailed in descriptions, and I like that. I know some people wouldn't like it. And it's not just full of feelings, and it's a book heavy on relationships because there's these 10 people in a relationship, and it's not just male-female relationships. Yeah, and I still consider this a favorite, though, because the plot is, just there. Not a lot actually happens, but I appreciate the detail and the historical setting and learning more about this mythical place. Then I reread one of my all-time favorite books, The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs by Robert Jordan. I initially listened to this on audio, and then I decided to read the physical book. And it's about the evolution of dinosaurs, how the dinosaurs like ruled Earth for so long, and then where did dinosaurs go? That's what it's about. If I counted rereads in my top favorites of the year, this would again be in my top favorite rereads, or top favorite reads of the year, because you can just feel the passion that I wrote on my notes that by Robert Jordan. It's by Steve Brusatte. You can just feel the passion that Steve Brusatte has for the topic. And it's great. He doesn't take credit for everything. You know, he always credits other people, and he gives things personality. He gives personality to the people that he talks about. Not just like his friends and colleagues and stuff, but also like historical figures. Like he gives them like a background and interesting facts about them. And, you know, makes them feel like real people as opposed to just like a historical figure, right? And plus I love dinosaurs, so why wouldn't I enjoy that? Oh, and then I reread 2 comics, and I looped them together because I kind of got them around the same time, and I reread them back to back. And that's Empire State by Jason Shiga and At a Crossroads by Kate T. Williamson. And these are examples of why I should pay closer attention to what's on my shelf and what books I'm keeping, because these were just bad books. I think I just kind of kept them because they were graphic novels. So Empire State is about it's about a guy who falls for his girl best friend, but she doesn't, you know, she just wants to be friends. And it's from his perspective. And then At a Crossroads is about a girl taking a year off after writing a book and living at her parents' house. And it was just like great big pictures and like a little line. And it just felt, you know, like the privilege was just coming through and she wasn't acknowledging it. And they're just boring and pointless books. So yeah. Then I went on this kick of reading some favorites from when I was a child. So that was Bamboo and Friends by John Atkinson, one of my childhood favorites. This is about 2 aliens, Bamboo and Windshield Wiper, yes, that's their names, come down to Earth, and they meet this little boy, and I can't even remember his name, I think it was like Ben, maybe, and they free the animals from the zoo after they find out that the zookeeper has been, or like the owner of the zoo, not the zookeeper who does the actual work, but the owner of the zoo has been not feeding the animals as much and keeping that money for himself. So I just love the message of this book, you know, actively working against bad people in the world, you know, especially greedy people that will hurt helpless people in order to get more money themselves. Another childhood favorite book I read was The Confessions of Charlotte Doyle by Avi, and this is about a young girl who's boarding a ship from England to America, and it turns out she's the only passenger, so she's like this 13-year-old girl on a ship full of sailors, and she eventually decides to join the crew. Like a whole bunch of stuff happens and she becomes a sailor, and like this is historical fiction in the 1830s, I believe. So it was quite interesting. It was definitely a different experience reading this as an adult, because I kept thinking about Charlotte's personal safety, but it is a middle grade novel, so it was more about, you know, an adventure. Yeah, it was still entertaining though, and an engaging plot when I kind of suspended that disbelief of, you know, little girl on a ship full of men for months at a time. Okay, then I also read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. I'm actually currently rereading this one. And that's about a man who discovers that Earth is going to be destroyed, and he gets rescued kind of by his alien friend as a hitchhiker ride on a ship, and then things go from there. It's a humorous science fiction classic that I really thoroughly enjoyed. And I'm not far enough into it right now to really comment too much on finding it entertaining. Maybe not as entertaining as the first time I read it, because I'm expecting certain lines, and certain lines become so iconic that it's just like, it's not like the first time you read those lines, you know, that they've become so almost overdone, so you're reading the initial source, it feels just like a little weird. Yeah. And my big reread, it took me like, I think it took me longer than just this year actually, and that is Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. As I'm filming this, I have 70 pages left, and I'm gonna finish it. These videos just took priority because I had to get them up at a certain time, but I'm doing it. I'm finishing it. I'm finally gonna, I started this project 4 years ago when I first read it. I said I'm gonna do all these videos and, you know, do this massive project, and I've had to relook at that and examine that, and I'm still gonna work on that. I don't know when they're gonna come out, obviously not by the end of this year. But I did read Brothers Karamazov. I'm reading it right now and thinking, like, if you love, like, true crime documentaries or, like, Law and Order or anything of those, I think you would really like Brothers Karamazov. It is about a group of 4 brothers. I'm counting Smerdakov as a brother. It's iffy who his father is, but I'm pretty sure it's the daddy Karamazov. And one of those brothers has murdered their father. And the story is about these different brothers and their kind of life, concentrating particularly on, like, the month or so before the father's death, and then the trial after the death. And it is so engaging. It's about everything as well, because we have like Aloysia, Alexei, or whatever you want to call him. He has different names and nicknames. Is very kind of religious, and Tesheshe is, I think, the Russian word of, like, gentle and caring and all this kind of thing. And then we have Ivan, who's, like, representing this kind of, like, Western ideal of, like, atheism and rationalizing things and questioning religion and Russian identity. And then we have Dmitri, who is like the what was the word that I read a book about Russian history, and he used the word gravne, and I'm going on this whole spiel, but gravne was like this weird kind of, like, military, hard, you know, fighting kind of person. And then Smerdakov, who his name literally means, like, stinky, and he's the illegitimate child, and I'm not going to spoil what I think he represents, but it's interesting. It's a really engaging story, and has a lot of history to it. So yeah, those are the books that I reread in 2020. Let me know if you've reread any books and the favorite one that you've read, and thank you for watching.